Redditors who do not have a romantic how we first met story with your significant other. How did you meet? My folks met when they ran for cover in the same spot during a drive-by shooting. I was the DD for the night at the local club. It was getting late and everyone wanted to party more. I was getting hungry. Outside the club this guy always had his hot dog cart set up, so I went outside to get a couple. The club didn't allow outside food or drink, so I just sat on the curb. She came out drunk as a skunk with her friends, took a few steps then puked on me. My hot dogs got ruined, too sad face. Her friends really weren't in any condition to drive either, so I called an Uber and asked him to let me know they got home safe. She called the next day incredibly apologetic and asked to make it up to me. She showed up to the restaurant with a new shirt and a pack of francs, laughed hysterically, got talking, and here we are. I always say she had a very unique method of picking me. Edit 1. Since so many asked, I gave her Uber my number asking for verification that they got home fine. He just told them to call me and gave him my number, so she had it. Edit 2. Franks are hot dogs. She brought replacement hot dogs for the ones she defiled. Smiley face. I don't remember meeting my husband. I was a freshman in high school and it was during band camp. I got a text from him one night and pretended to know who he was because I was too embarrassed that I didn't know everyone's names yet. Edit. We actually took a couple wedding pictures on the field where we met because we're nerds. Have you figured out his name yet? If not, take him to Starbucks. Also, if you're about to marry him, pay attention to the priest. Usually they call them out by their name when asking for the vows. Met at a homeless shelter. We hit it off, got back on our feet, got a place together, getting married. Edit. It never seemed a romantic situation to me. We met in a homeless shelter isn't exactly something we tell people openly. You found love in a homeless place. I met my wife in 1989, in psychiatric hospital. Married for 29 years now. Edit. Spelling. Met my GF at a New Year's Eve party. We were both super drunk. I may have blurted out my life story too. I came back with her to her apartment. After sobering up, I decided to get naked and crawl into her bathtub. I passed out, but woke up with a blanket on me and a pillow under my head. She sent me a message asking if I was okay. I asked her out for coffee. The rest is history, I guess. After sobering up, I decided to get naked and crawl into her bathtub. I have to question your level of sobriety at this point. Have same first name and last names one letter off. Keep getting each other's mail. Added my wife on Facebook 11 years ago because I thought she was hot. She popped up in a friend's pictures and I was like, damn, nice, and now I wake up in the same bed as her and I say, damn, nice, every single day. He was drunk. An acquaintance and I went to pick him and another friend up to go out to a club. We've been together almost 15 and half a year, married 13. Even his proposal was not very romantic. We were in our backyard getting ready to barbecue and he asked me if I would marry him. First thing out of my mouth was, are you sure? It totally works for us though. She tripped on the gutter. While everyone around her helped her, I just stood there trying to contain my laugh. She still tells this story to other people up to this day. She tripped and you fell. That's romantic. My wife and I met on OkCupid. I used to feel kind of embarrassed about this until I realized that now there are married couples out there who met on Tinder. Who knows, in a few more years Tinder will probably seem old-fashioned, and all the young people will be meeting up on findasetofgenitals.com. I was donating blood and I hit it off with the lady next to me. She seemed to like my weird sense of humor and I think our blood bags touched. Not me but an old friend. Back in the 70s, my friend Shirley was at a bar late one night making a phone call in the back room on a pay phone, and some drunk asshole came stumbling in and took the phone from her, hung it up, then proceeded to make a call to someone else. She stood back and smacked him in the face. He fell flat on the floor and busted out laughing. That's how they met, a short bar fight I suppose, lol. I always loved hearing that story when I drank with them. She passed away a few years back and was a very sweet woman. Met my husband on Plenty of Fish. I had an account my friend and I used to troll people when we were bored, used my own picture, and he seemed decent so I told him what was up with my account. He thought it was funny and asked me on a date. Day we scheduled to meet up, my appendix exploded and was in the ICU for 2 weeks. Okay, rescheduled once I got home. His GPS directed him to my house by driving through a river. We lived in Florida at the time, so mud, crackheads and alligators were a concern. Police had to come save him and escorted him to my house. We still laugh about it. Edit, I'm on mobile and new to Reddit, so hopefully this doesn't look like shit. I wasn't expecting this to blow up. Your comments are great. He's from Canada and was new to Florida, so the day we met was a very wild ride for him. He didn't drive into the river, he stopped and got his car stuck in the mud when he realized that the road was ending. I should have been more specific. Edit 2, thank you stranger for my first silver. Edit 3, since some people doesn't know how to use context clues, the trolling was given to the creepy, predatory people. Nobody innocent was trolled. Y'all can stop crying now, smiley face, sorry if rude. The GPS directed him through a river? Was he the regional manager of a branch of a mid-sized paper company by chance? She first met me while dating my best friend and I was with another girl at the time. Years later, my best friend convinced me to hang out with her, called her up and invited her to Buffalo Wild Wings where he and I were hanging out. Since we had both already eaten, we walked across the parking lot to a bar. I played darts with friends while drinking and talking to her a bit, then after the bar closed, we went back to our cars, started making out, decided there wasn't enough room inside, and fucked with her bent over the hood of my car in Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot at 4 a.m. It was a magical night we'll tell our grandchildren about one day. I assume this is a tourism ad for New Jersey. Not me, but one of my friends told me about how their parents knew a couple who found each other around the bin truck. So basically one day a guy went to take back his metal can from the street, but there was a big problem. The garbage worker had accidentally made a tear in the bin bag and ripped it open, spreading shits everywhere on the pavement. So next week the upset man waited for the same workers to show up to get some explanations. Turns out that garbage worker was in fact a woman of the same age, which was really rare in those times, 70s to 80s. Charmed by her uniqueness, the dude decided to share numbers. They dated and we all know the rest. Not the nicest way to meet someone if you ask me, haha, but quite a nice story. Edit, sup Redify. I fuck up your trash bin, you fuck up my booty, this girl probably. At work. She was really shy and I thought she wanted to murder me. I still think that, but at least now she has my life insurance. Working at a residential treatment center for emotionally disturbed adolescents. There was a riot on campus. It took 2 shifts of staff to get the kids quieted down and back in bed. We were supposed to get off work at 11 p.m. but were there until 1 a.m. Guy the first was working with was friends with my roommate. So after we got off, I said, I'm going home to get drunk. Want to come? That was 42 years ago. We've been married for 37 years and have 2 adult children. We both joined a group to play D&D together. He was a halfling rogue, I was a human barbarian. In the first session he climbed on my shoulders to spear some foe in the throat, and then on my next turn I attempted to assist him up onto the roof of the small hut next to us. I rolled a natural 1 and basically punted him into a wall for some ridiculous amount of damage. Oops. We've been married for 5 years and have 2 kids, well, almost, I'm very pregnant right now. We met online, and didn't plan to exactly be in a relationship. Accidentally ended up married, oops. Same. Looking online for a random hookup, his profile mentioned awkward first date sex. Asked him how I sign up for this kind of date. He told me I just did. That was 10 years ago, married for 5. Side note, he didn't put out until date 4 or 5, so that was a lie, lol. Lol, I misread it at first and thought you said, he didn't pull out until date 4 or 5. Match.com. She sent me an email and I waited a day to decide if the $20 commitment was worth it. It was, and we've been married a little over a decade. Me and my husband met in a threesome I had with an ex. I did open relationships at the time. The sexual chemistry between us was very obvious from the jump, and over the years we became best friends that had an on-again off-again sexual friendship whenever we were both single. 8 years later, we both found ourselves single again and finally admitted that we were ridiculously in love with each other. Been together and happily monogamous ever since. Badminton class in college. I was beating him badly. He finally realized I was a competitive freak and not some little girl who didn't care if she won or not. My dating litmus has always been like this, especially air hockey. I'm a competitive man, I don't mind losing, but show me what you got. Don't play embarrassed, or half-assed, play to win. Much more fun that way regardless of who the victor is. Nothing hotter than a self-confident, go-getter woman. I was walking through a crowded beer garden to meet my longtime female friend who already had a table saved and insisted I had to meet her friend. I spotted her friend immediately and she spotted me even though we'd never met. I proceeded to sit down and make small talk, but I was enamored. I instigated everything, which I had never done before in my life. I was completely taken by her. Yada yada yada. We made out and spent the next week together, avoiding all outside responsibilities and careers. 3 years and thousands of dollars in legal fees later and I just narrowly avoided jail time because of her lies. She is the meanest person I've ever met. Hitler and Stalin had more gumption than her. A true sociopath. We had Spanish class together and we were both shy. So when we picked partners for projects, assignments, we were always the last two who didn't have partners. Man, he said not romantic stuff. Craigslist. I was new in town, didn't know many people. I put an ad up looking for someone to go explore and do weird shit, like put googly eyes on things. She answered, we emailed back and forth a few times. Met. Hung out. It was really relaxed. Then about 3 weeks later we realized it was more than that. Damn, you found a lover on Craigslist. Meanwhile I can't even find a good quality sale. Meanwhile I can't buy a Wii game without getting stabbed. Tinder. I had been dumped a few weeks earlier and wanted to just do me and not worry about anyone else for a bit. Well, that got old fast, so I downloaded the app and started swiping. We matched about a day later and spent a few days texting through the app before she gave me her number, and then about a week later we met up for drinks. I was poor at the time, had just started a new job and missed the first pay period, so we had one drink and then I made an excuse to leave because I couldn't afford any more. We walked out and I gave her a hug saying bye and we should meet up again soon. We will be celebrating our 2-year in December. Just do me. That got old fast. Relatable. He was my mom's upstairs neighbor and my mom forbid me from hanging with him as she was sure he was a bad influence. I was staying with her for a bit. 13 years and 2 kids later, we're all a big happy family. The way you phrased this makes him sound substantially older, tbh. Edit, I was right, apparently. Honestly, at the time our nearly 10-year age difference felt bigger than it did now. I was an adult by all means, but still had a lot of maturing to do. My now wife got shit-faced at New Year's Day party and confessed her crush on me. She then persistently tried to coerce a very sober and uncomfortable me to sleep with her, which I declined. Called her the next day and asked her on a proper date. That was almost 7 years ago and we've been happily married 3 years. Tinder. Maybe one day I'll tell my parents, but the friend of a friend story has worked well enough so far. My parents have a pretty great one. My mom was a 19-year-old intern at this big company. She was tasked with inventorying a warehouse. She found a box of screws with no part number. She asked around for days. Nobody knew anything about these screws. She was getting frustrated. Finally, somebody directed her to go see this particular guy who was kind of famous for being a reclusive, if brilliant dickhead. She walks into his office, holds up a screw, and asks him, "I've asked everybody, no one knows. What is this?" My dad looks at her and says, absolutely deadpan, "It's a screw." She called him an asshole and stormed out. They were married 5 years later. Their 40th wedding anniversary is next August, smiley face. They also got engaged in a Taco Bell. My parents are great at not romantic stuff. My partner and I don't have a typically romantic story, but we do have a hot one. I first saw him at a friend's birthday party. We talked for a bit but nothing happened as I had a flight to catch. We met again, months later in a different continent, at a sex party. We locked eyes, recognized each other and fucked like insatiable beasts. Been together for 3 years. Edit, for anyone who's interested, here's a link to a post I made about this on my NSFW account. How is that not romantic? It is the typical I walked into a room, we locked eyes and the rest is history. So much history. Also, sex party? Do people have other kinds of parties? Username checks out. In this thread, a lot of stories that are actually pretty cute. I met my wife at trivia at a local restaurant. She was cute, and we met amongst a group of friends. I found out she was working at Subway. She was a senior in high school, and I was a freshman in college. I stopped by that Subway one day with the intention of flirting, and managed to a bit, until I realized she was buttering me up to get a ride home. Excited, I eagerly agreed. Then, I found out she was needing to get home to get ready for a date with another guy. We met again when she came to my university later that year. I was going to the comedy show with Carlos Mencia, and I was hammered drunk. Lo and behold, I stumbled drunkenly into a group of girls, and I nearly topple her. We proceed to have a great night, and everything from there was history. Not particularly romantic though, lol. Manhunt.com. Hey, wanna trade BJs? Sure. The gays had it figured out long before Tinder and smartphones. 11 years together and celebrating our second wedding anniversary next week. Edit because the upvotes reached 666. Thanks everyone. Ooh, the devil number lol. The hardest part was still trying to explain Manhunt to my mother. We're in the process of adopting children, so wish us well. Regardless of religious beliefs, my husband and I can provide a much more wonderful and stable childhood than most foster care environments. Thank you for all the support. But does he know you're gay? A good friend of ours gave my number to them without my prior knowledge. They were in the military and stationed several thousand miles away. I hadn't even heard of my future so before, much less met them. Their first text to me was the creepiest message I've ever received. It was something like, I've been getting to know you over friends shoulder for a while now. I just had to talk to you for myself. We just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary. Edit, typo. I asked her out in high school, she rejected me. 8/9 of a year later her boyfriend slapped me, I told him he'd regret it. I stole his girlfriend, and now I'm marrying her. Online gaming. I lashed out publicly because I was emotional and they sent a message apologizing because they genuinely thought it was their fault I was angry. I cried, we talked, and we started talking because guildies were supposed to get along. My husband and I met working our shittiest job ever, Walmart. I met my wife at an orgy. Well, she was leaving an orgy, and we bumped into each other on the street. Real meet cute. My husband and I met while he was dating one of my friends in high school. Whoops. To my credit, they broke up after she cheated on him multiple times, so I don't feel like I violated girl code too badly. I sat behind her in math class. She copied my homework daily. I dated his roommate. We technically met on my second date with said roommate at a dive bar, but I don't think he said more than 2 words to me after introductions. He was trying to be respectful to his roommate. We almost didn't get together because it's not cool to date your friend's exes. There was a little drama at first, but we've been together 10 years, married for 5. Still friends with the roommate, his wife is perfect for him, and our kids play together now. Edit, I did not dump the roommate for my husband, we dated less than a year and just weren't compatible long-term. I think we'd been broken up like 4 to 6 months before I got together with my husband, everyone was living independently by then. Still, not very romantic. Tinder. I drove an hour and a half to her friend's house to hang out with her after talking idly for a couple months. I thought she was just gonna be another hookup and she was terrified of that BC, she'd never done anything like that before. So we just drank beer and watched movies. Her friends went to sleep and we hooked up. Stayed up laughing and talking until 8 a.m. It went a lot better than I ever expected it to. Sorry dude, but that's pretty romantic. I was shy in high school. Senior year, I decided I needed to take initiative or I'd end up graduating without having had a girlfriend for my entire high school career. I made a list of 3 girls that I wanted to introduce myself to. The next day, one of the girls was behind me as we all kinda gathered around the door to wait for the bell to ring at the end of our last period of the day. I turned around and asked her if she knew what the homework was. I knew there wasn't any. The bell rang as she was trying to answer, so we kinda had to start walking together for her to answer me. Then we started talking and ended up walking to our cars together. We did that for the rest of the week, then I asked her to see a movie with me that weekend. Now we've been together 12 years, are married, and have 2 daughters. Some booty call agreement FWD was going around at work as a joke. I filled it out and gave it to the receptionist and she then filled out her portion. Then the next day I filled her out. 14 years and 2 kids later, all is well. Sounds like an HR nightmare nowadays. My ex-wife introduced us. We met on Omegle. This was before they added video chat, so it's slightly more romantic than you might imagine, but not by much. Trudging through a sea of dicks to find someone worthwhile isn't the most romantic story to tell. My dog got her dog pregnant. I don't know how those two met because he's often chilling in my fenced backyard, without a leash, only a collar with my number in it, so he must have escaped and had a good time and come back all in under 1 hour. One day she called me and yelled at me for not neutering him and let him roam freely. I yelled back at her for not spaying her dog and told her that my boy isn't walking around on the streets freely. We had a big argument about everything. My dog is the only one who could have gotten hers pregnant, so I couldn't just do nothing. We talked it out and fell in love shortly after the puppies came, smiley face. He was moved to my algebra class in the 2nd semester of our junior year. The only seat available was the one behind me. Our teacher was an idiot, so I would read books while she lectured and he would put his head down and nap. We taught ourselves after lecture by learning from the textbook. A week after he joined our class, he did the most annoying thing ever. I was clearly nose deep into my book and he tried to start up a conversation. "What are you reading? Is it an interesting book? Oh, you're just gonna show me the cover but not say anything? Okay, great talking to you." He then put his head back down and took a nap. After this, every day he would try to interrupt me while I read and I would always give him a dirty look. I eventually started to talk to him and he asked me out towards the end of the semester. He said he ended up liking me because I didn't act like the rest of the girls. I laughed when he was choking on M&Ms and tried to trip him after interrupting my reading for 2 weeks. We got married on our 10-year anniversary of dating and have been married for 4 years now. Last year we had our son and still like annoying each other. I was eating tacos in a mall food court. He walked by me and I thought he was cute, but then I started choking on my taco and he looked at me weird and walked away. My friend with me went and got his number for me. 7 years ago. He told me he thought I was laughing at him. Thanks, Taco Bell. Depends on your definition of romantic. I was 19 on a lads' holiday and she was on a similar enterprise with a group of girls both from the UK and went to Malia, Greece. We had a week-long romance and then went our separate ways for 4 to 5 years before I ended up doing some temp work down the road from where I thought she lived. Dropped her a message and we met up for a drink when I was on lunch. Really hit it off and we're moving in together come January after 5 years of happiness, most of the time anyways XD, and 9 years after I first met her. Tinder. I'm not sure why, but he decided to take me to one of the most expensive restaurants in town and he told me that when I said I wanted to look at a dessert menu is when he knew I was having a good time. And he asked to kiss me at the end of the night, which I thought was sweet for him to ask. After a few months we became exclusive and have been together since. Apparently we had met in 2 separate classes but I didn't remember him. We finally connected for real on Yik Yak, lol, because I was a sad person and he knew what that was like and helped me work through it. Months later, I finally gave him a chance. Been almost 3 years now. I always go with the sweet lovey-dovey story that my husband and I have been best friends since we were 11 and 12. The truth is, the first day I met him I choked him out. He was sitting behind a couch with his back to the couch, and I reached over the back and grabbed him. I don't know why I did that, just a stupid kid thing I guess. But apparently it worked. We are 28 now and have been married for 3 of those years, even though we have been a couple since 17 and 18. One night stand. Married now, of course. A friend is in that position. She was on the rebound, looking for someone to take her mind off a bad breakup. She ended up finding the father of her 2 kids. They've been together 10 years now, married 6. The kids must have been relieved to finally meet their father. It was literally the first time I threw caution into the wind and thought, I'll just have unattached sex with a stranger for once, and we've hardly spent a day apart in 10 years. I'm confused on the definition of one-night stand, apparently. Met her on a dating site. Thought she was the cutest girl I'd ever seen and decided to try messaging her but wasn't really expecting her to message back. Best decision ever. Now married and we have a beautiful little girl together. Gaming. Originally, he was with another person when we met, as was I. We were in a role-play guild together in the Elder Scrolls Online, yep, nerd alert. When he and his at-the-time partner joined the guild, I rather liked the way he made his character. He eventually joined the guild Discord, and found his Discord username hysterical. Me and my at-the-time partner loved role-playing with him. So we role-played a while. Then his ex pulled the "I'ma disappear" card, didn't come back for about a month and then dumped him in an act of cowardice. But all through it I was the one listening to his issues. At the same time, my own relationship fell apart because my own at-the-time partner became emotionally and physically unavailable. So we kinda just stuck it out together, and now here we are, a year and a half later. I'm in a good place now, and am working hard to be able to go visit him someday. She got into the van. She's refused to put the lotion on her skin a couple of times and I had to apply the hose, but she's been a bit more compliant recently. I like her more than the other ones, she's got a bit of spirit in her. But she better keep away from my dog. We were in the same scholars group and thus the sale dorm and social group our first 2 years of college. I had a pretty instantaneous crush on him, it died in about 2 weeks, we got to be good friends and life went on. Our junior year, said crush came back with a vengeance in conjunction with me starting to drink and go to parties, where I would drunkenly try to flirt. After one such party, I sloppily told him all about how much I liked him and wanted to go on a daate with him. Humiliating, but it led to us having a feelings talk while sober a few days later, and we just celebrated our 4th anniversary. Very college. Very ridiculous on my part. I'm still prone to telling him how much I like and love him if I have too much to drink, guess it's on brand at this point, _Sue_. We worked together and hated each other for months. Literally refused to work together. Then our boss was basically like, suck it the fuck up, and had me train him for a job. I had been there almost 2 years and he'd only been there a couple months. I trained him for 1 week, we worked together almost exclusively that week. By the end of the week we were inseparable. We were best friends, everyone at work was hella confused because we started taking our lunches together and we were requesting to work together as much as possible. It was like that for a month, maybe 2. Not sure how it happened but we ended up in the break room alone together. That never happened because usually 4 to 5 people took their breaks at the same time in the break room. Nothing was planned, we had never talked about being romantically involved. But we just started making out. I remember standing by the fridge and I turned around and he was right there was no hesitation, we both just went right in for a kiss. It felt so natural, and after that there was nothing anyone could do to get us away from each other. We live together now, but we don't work together anymore. Hard to believe someone I hated so much turned into the love of my life. That is so rom-com. Dating site. After having great conversation on our first date, the second date resulted in me having a severely upset stomach from spicy food earlier in the day and her finding out that she has the same name as my sister. Amazingly, there was a third date and we're still together 14 months later. Edit, I knew her name. I just didn't tell her that she shared the same name as my sister. I was her trainer at Walmart. You two have betrayed Sam Walton's sacred trust. How do you live with yourselves when you put romantic love above the bond between Walmart trainer and trainee? Has the squiggle lost all meaning? He was my crush in high school and we used to like each other. I had an anime character as my background on my phone and he saw that and said I was a nerdy weeaboo. She is my friend's older sister who I didn't know was his sister till we were like 17, then 10 years later I asked her to a movie and hung out every day since. When I knew I loved her was when she wouldn't officially go steady with me. I asked if she would mind if I asked her blonde friend out and she got real jealous. Wouldn't talk to me for a week. She came to my house and said she was mad at me because she didn't want to lose me. Apparently she wouldn't go out with me officially because she had told me she loved me and I never responded. I never responded because I never heard it. My ears are shot after Iraq too, Baghdad Boogaloo. So if you've made it this far in the story, use your words with your partner, and when you're done ask them to repeat what you just said, because half the time I just nod to be polite. Iraq 2, Baghdad Boogaloo. My friend invited me to get tacos with two guys that lived in our dorm. I almost said no because the night before, she went to a party and made out with a guy on her Snapchat story that she knew I was going for. I decided to be the bigger person and go. I've been dating one of the guys we ate with for almost 3 years now. She tried to steal him from me as well, haha. We are no longer friends. I met my current so at a Halloween party about 6 years ago, and we were grinding on each other by the end of the night. I tried to hook up with her at the end of the night but got cock-blocked, and then we just became friends with benefits. At a Halloween party about 6 years ago. May I tell you about calendars? I worked at the customer service desk and my boyfriend worked carts, dairy, stock at the grocery store we worked at. We had been working together for like 6 months but never talked. One day he walked past me and he looked kinda sad, mad, he always does though, and I asked, "Why do you look so scary?" He took that as me calling him ugly and was hurt cause he'd had his eyes on me for a while. LMAO. He ended up avoiding me after that. But we ended up working on stocking stuff together for a while and it all worked out. We matched on Tinder and she drunkenly sent me a message say that my furniture looked nice from the back window as a dare. I drunkenly replied and we ended up going on a date a few days later. 5 years later we have 3 kids and are happily married. I was involved in a group activity and there was this cute girl. We smiled and would have brief comments to each other. Asked some guys for her full name. Eventually found her phone number and had some good conversations. Kept smiling and saying hi in the group. Then I called and asked her out. Went to pick her up, the apartment door opened, and my date was the other strawberry blonde in my group. Same hair, same look, a little shorter but also very cute. I almost said, "Oh, it's you." I certainly thought that. Date went well. My roommate and I laughed for a half hour when I got home. We've been married for years now. OkCupid missed the last bus to my place for the night and he was close. Hit him up, went to a hotel, drank and fucked like 3 times before bed. I met my wife during a fraternity party in our dirty, prone to flooding, basement while I was wearing a pink onesie with the footies attached. That was 9 years ago. I got his number from a classmate so I could ask him if he knew where I could find weed, didn't even know his name at the time. I was starting my first day on the job and my manager was introducing me to people in the office. My manager introduced us, I said, "Hey," and he said, "Hey." We worked together and had a normal co-worker relationship. We never hung out outside of work and it was never unprofessional. I was actually dating someone else at the time and he was dating around as well. Then 3 years later after I moved to a different team we met out downtown one night and hooked up. Now we have a house together in the country and 4 fur babies. Not a romantic story in the slightest, but I weirdly prefer it that way. I've posted before, but was at my favorite bar and I approached this girl. Me, "I see you have some chili cheese fries." Her, "Yes, would you like some?" Me, "Yes." Been married for almost 15 years now. I messaged her sister on AIM and asked about her. Wasn't really interested. One of my friends bet I couldn't get her to go out with me. Well, we ended up talking all night on the phone. Then again the next night. Then again. Then the weekend hit and I asked to stay at my grandma's house overnight because my grandma lived close to her. I snuck out of my grandma's house and went to hers. I snuck into her window and it's one of my favorite memories. We didn't have sex, we didn't really know each other outside of a few all-night phone calls, but I felt something. We ended up watching The Fox and the Hound. When the soul-crushing movie ended, I didn't kiss her, although I wanted to. I climbed out of her window and went back to my grandma's. Currently married 11 years with 2 kids. I don't consider a bet to be romantic, but it's funny how things work out. My wife and I were in grade school together but were not friends. In 2007, she sent me a message on MySpace, "Yeah, I'm old," and 10 weeks later we were engaged. In 2007, she sent me a message on MySpace, "Yeah, I'm old." If that's enough to be old, I'm sad. I was heading to the bathroom at a concert, Slipknot's Knotfest Roadshow, and as I walked by complimented his shirt, Rick and Morty, Blink-182 mash-up. He smiled and I don't know what came over me, but I lightly touched his face and said, "Oh, you're cute too," and just kept on my way to the bathroom. He found me sitting down eating a little later and we spent the whole evening together, smiley face. I met my husband on 4/20. It was our freshman year of college. We hadn't met yet but had mutual friends. We ended up at the same house party one night where our friends introduced us. Side note, there was also another guy there who I had hooked up with on and off, who I was arguing with that night. Had no idea at the time how good that was for me. That party ended for some reason, lack of beer, so we ended up in a frat brothers van with our mutual friends to go to a different party. Van ride over, now husband sat on my lap. We get there and start drinking pretty heavily. He asks me to play a game of beer pong with him, of course I said yes. We get to the last cup left on our opponent's side and before he takes his shot, he turns to me and says, "If I make this you have to kiss me," which I agreed to. He didn't make it. We lost. I still kissed him. We ended up back at his place at the end of the night. I woke up to my fake nails littering his dorm room floor as his roommate walked in. 7 years later we got married. P.S. I knew our meeting story was kinda trashy. Once I wrote it out here. I feel much trashier. Though I adore my husband and wouldn't change a damn thing. I met my girl at work. We both hated each other for a long time until the day me and my then wife had separated. She was there for me and we just clicked. Now we spend every waking moment with each other, work, home, it doesn't matter, we are always together. We met on OkCupid. He messaged me and asked how my day was. Together 9 years in August and married for 5 of them November 1st. Match.com. I winked at her and she winked back. I then proceeded to be late for our first date and upon finally meeting her had to run to the bathroom from anxiety. Married almost 3 years now. Plenty of fish. Met online, told him I was just testing the waters. We met up. I took him to my favorite swim spot. He thought I was going to murder him. Barely communicated after that till one day I asked if he was still interested. He said yes, he thought I wasn't. We have been together 4 years. 20th. I went to a drinking party when I was 19. Everyone was playing beer games, like 3-man. Last thing I remember is being beer bitch. Woke up the next day with some guy in bed with me. Neither of us remember how we got there or what happened. After a couple of days hanging out with him, we started dating. 40 days later, we got married. 16 years later, we are still together with 3 beautiful children. Not romantic at all. Thanks for watching our video. If you like it, please smash the subscribe and like button to support the channel so that we can create more quality content in the future.